Answer the question, what matters to you? Again, very simple idea, very thought-provoking. But then when you see later on the video clips linked together of how differently people would respond to that, it provides a really interesting aspect to the project. Functional public art. Really, you do not need to buy bicycle racks out of a catalog or tree grates. You don't need to buy those out of a catalog. An artist can use the same budget you have and do something better and more interesting, and you're putting artists to work in your community. Here's a bench that happens to sit at the exact midpoint between Minneapolis and St. Paul on University Avenue. It's called Sibling Rivalry. So it's a tug of war, and you could sit in the middle if you like. Other benches. You could do a whole project just with benches and never run out of ideas. In fact, I recommend it as a starting point for a public art program. Anybody can design something to sit on, I'm pretty sure. You can just roll a log or a boulder over, and I can tell you, if it was up to the kids in the park, they're going to sit on that instead of the park bench that you spent $4,000 on. So, why not engage artists in the functional elements that you already are spending money on in the city? There's so much you can do with a bench. You can spend a lot of money on benches too if you want. This is resin cast with LED lighting inserted. Sure, it's beautiful at night, but probably not worth a few $100,000. Maybe, if you have a few $100,000 to blow. But okay, bridges. If you're going to replace a bridge, make sure there's an artist on the design team, and don't let the engineers tell you they can't work with an artist, which is what they will tell you. You don't need a percent for art program to build an artist-designed bridge. This is in Wichita, Kansas. They do not have a percent for art there. But what they do have, that I highly recommend you get one for yourselves, is an enlightened public, well, I'm not saying your public works director isn't enlightened, but what you need is an enlightened public works director who says, I want artists designing and building all the bridges that I have to build. And why not? And it isn't about 1%. He doesn't care that it's 1% of the budget. He wants a bridge that people remember. And iconic symbol of the city is actually within your reach as part of the budget of your bridge, maybe a little bit extra. Okay, what can you do with a HUD home before you tear it down? In this case, in Houston, Texas, an artist took all the lumber out of the house and created this wooden vortex through the house. And it was a temporary installation, quite dramatic, a definite photo op, definitely went viral. And then the city started to think, why don't I give this artist other projects? You know, we're going to tear these houses down. Why not make the most of it before they do get torn down? Temporary installations in outdoor settings using environmentally sustainable materials or materials that will decompose over time. This is in Taiwan, where they have a biennial. Every 2 years they invite artists to come and create outdoor environmental works. They give them a budget, they let the artists go free, and they obviously are creating projects that draw audiences. Cultural tourism is an easy outgrowth of a program like this. Now, if you want to get really carried away, if you have an iceberg and a lot of red food coloring, you could create your own iceberg, or color the bluffs of one of your slopes, or color the wool of the sheep grazing nearby, or create an earthwork that can only be seen and understood from the air like a hot air balloon. This one is in Turkey and involved thousands of residents helping build this project by Australian artist Andrew Rogers. And again, for him, it was about referencing the history of this place and the early tools that were actually started in this part of the world. Artists are drawn to water, as you probably already know. This is a project in Northfield, Minnesota, where an artist hung some fabric panels over the river. It was a lot easier creating the fabric panels than it was getting permission to hang them over the river. These are one of the challenges artists face when they want to do public art. This is why you need help at the city and county and state and government agencies that can allow for these kinds of things to happen under the right circumstances. Temporary installations. Andy Goldsworthy is one of the masters of doing something so brief that it might not even last long enough for him to take a photograph. But if you get a book of Andy Goldsworthy's photographs of his temporary installations, they're incredible. They're incredible partly because you know they're ephemeral. This one made out of icicles that he welded together with his own spit around a tree trunk, then waited for the right moment for the sun to come out to get this one photo before it fell apart. There's a whole breed of curators exploring public art now. This one's called the Snow Show, that teamed artists and architects to work with ice and snow to create incredible landscapes. In Norway, okay, if Norway can do this, I know you can do this here. But it's that idea that famous architects want to work with famous artists. And if you have the opportunity to pair them up, they'll often say yes. It doesn't matter where in the world it is. It's because they want to work together. I'm not saying that they wouldn't want to come to Fargo or to Norway, but the idea is they're intrigued by the opportunity to do something that is challenging for them, or a new collaboration with a design professional they've never had the opportunity to work with. So just by having the right ingredients of combination, you have them. And of course, a good curator who knows how to pull that group together and make it happen. Okay, if we go back in time a little bit, earthworks are something that started back in the 70s, Robert Smithson and Spiral Jetty. This wasn't meant to last, by the way, but people seem to feel the need to try to preserve Spiral Jetty, even after it was submerged under the Great Salt Lake and invisible for many years. It finally reemerged with the drought, and then people were trying to figure out how to fix it. And I'm quite sure the artist would have said, why do you want to try to fix it? But the environment is something artists have been very interested in for a long time. And the more you give artists the opportunity to address the environmental challenges that we have in the world, the more you're going to start to see out-of-the-box solutions and metaphors that help a broader audience understand how fragile our ecosystem is. So here's an artist, a really interesting artist from Seattle named Lainey something. I'll forget her name now. This is what happens when you get my age. But this is called a pocket biosphere. And you would go to a gallery where she would have these out on display, and then you could adopt one. And here's the catch. You had to sign adoption papers to take this biosphere, this pocket biosphere, home with you. And you had to promise in your adoption papers that you would give it a drop of water every day or it will die. And people I've talked to who have this experience and adopted one managed for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they forgot for one day, and yeah, it died. And that is just a great, powerful way, again, at the very intimate scale, to convey what's going on a much larger scale with our own ecosystem. So if you have any inflatable octopus tentacles, you could pretty much go wherever you want, any building, any minivan, and create a public art spectacle right there on the spot. And this is in France by an artist who has traveled the world, not just with the tentacles, but this basic idea of inflatable public art on the spot without permission. And who's not going to take a picture of this and send it virally all over the world? Another example of a project using LED lighting, and just about any project involving lighting these days or in the future will be talking about LED and sustainability as a criteria going forward. This is Dennis Oppenheim's battle drums. The battle is being recreated on the ground plane with these two warring groups that now fight just to be a light on the ground. And scale matters. In this case, miniature scale. This is the smallest public art I could think of to show you. on the streets of London. You can easily walk by this without noticing it all, or step on it accidentally and destroy it. But here's some really modestly miniature scale tourists exploring the London landscape. Here's some more interesting eco street art done with moss, okay? So if you know how to grow things, you can create graffiti that's really, eco-friendly. This is do-it-yourself public art. It's happening more and more often. Don't need a budget. You don't need a sanctioned public agency. You just take over a space, in this case, with lots of Post-it notes. And what do you do with Post-it notes? You write your to-do. So people would come up to these Post-it notes and write their to-dos on them until the whole wall gets filled up. Here's another good one. You can download these stickers from thebubbleproject.com and print out these stickers, and then you write what you want it to say and put it up on advertising around the city, right? So there's an example of what you can do with your own stickers. Or this city in Europe that decided, with an artist's help, for one day, let's not have any advertising. And the artist came up with a plan to cover every ad in the downtown. And of course, the merchants kind of freaked out at this idea. You know, how are they going to know that we're going to lose business? But interestingly enough, though, an increase in business happened the day they covered up all the advertising. This is another one called the Pixelator. You can make this at home. Basically, cardboard box, stretch it with some wax paper, or put a grid together, and then just put it over your TV and turn the TV on. Or cover up TV advertising on the street, like this entrance to the subway, and you have instant abstract kinetic art. Scaffolding around buildings can be transformed. You don't have to just look at scaffolding anymore. Programmable public art, lights hanging. This is, I believe, in Toronto by an artist who programs these lights, just 4-letter words constantly rotating. Memorials, again, this is examples of new technology that allow photographic imagery to be etched into stone, onto metal. Placemaking, more examples. Building facades made out of lights that can be programmed. This is happening more and more as well. The kinds of spaces that artists come up with are what you want to encourage, not necessarily dictate, as I said at the beginning. So the city of San Antonio has a river walk. Maybe you've heard about it. It's a huge draw. And they're trying to extend the walk, and they want to make the undersides of bridges user-friendly, pedestrian-friendly. So Donald Lipsky created these illuminating fish, schools of fish swimming underneath the bridges. This is a trio of artists from Seattle who created kind of a mobile living room environment. Steam and LED and a variety of technologies go into making this complex wall relief. And at night,